What if everything we know about the universe is wrong? What if the most advanced telescope ever built, a machine capable of peering billions of light years into the past, has uncovered something so disturbing, so impossible, that it threatens to rewrite the very story of creation itself? This is not science fiction. This is not speculation. This is what scientists are facing right now. When NASA launched the James Webb Space Telescope, humanity expected answers. It was designed to gaze further than the Hubble ever could, to look into the faint red glow of the cosmos mere moments after the Big Bang. But instead of neat, orderly truths, it delivered chaos. Webb's instruments revealed galaxies, fully formed, massive, complex galaxies existing far earlier than they should. Some of them appear to be older than the universe itself. Think about that. According to our best models, the universe is 13.8 billion years old. That's the age set by the Big Bang theory, calibrated through decades of measurements of cosmic background radiation, expansion rates, and galaxy evolution. But Webb has captured light from galaxies that seem to predate this entire framework. How can something be older than everything? For many, this is like discovering fossils of modern humans walking alongside dinosaurs. It doesn't just bend the rules, it shatters them. The telescope has shown us clusters of stars that should not have had time to form, spiral structures that shouldn't exist so early, and colossal galaxies rivaling the Milky Way in mass appearing just a few 100 million years after the supposed beginning of time. According to the textbooks, that is utterly impossible. But there they are, silent, shining ghosts from a past that should never have been. Imagine looking at the night sky and suddenly realizing that the entire timeline of history might be a lie. That's the position astrophysicists find themselves in today. Some scientists admit in hushed tones that Webb's discoveries could mean our cosmology is fundamentally broken. But let's rewind for a moment. To understand why this discovery is so shocking, we need to revisit the very foundations of how we think the universe began. In 1929, Edwin Hubble discovered that distant galaxies are moving away from us, and the further they are, the faster they recede. This implied that the universe was expanding. Reverse the clock, and everything collapses back to a single point, a hot, dense singularity. That moment, 13.8 billion years ago, became known as the Big Bang. From there, the story seemed straightforward. The universe expanded, cooled, and formed hydrogen and helium. Gravity pulled matter together, birthing the first stars after about 200 million years. Only much later, perhaps after 1 billion years, did galaxies like our own, the Milky Way, take shape. This was the standard model of cosmology, the neat, ordered timeline of creation. But James Webb has smashed that timeline to pieces. Take the galaxy known as Glass Z13. Webb detected it at a staggering redshift of 13. That means we are seeing it as it was just 300 million years after the Big Bang. But here's the problem. This galaxy isn't a small, primitive cluster of stars. It's massive, bright, and structured. In cosmic terms, it's like meeting a full-grown adult just seconds after birth. And Glass Z13 isn't alone. One after another, Webb has revealed galaxies that appear too large, too organized, too old to fit the Big Bang narrative. Some of them are estimated to contain as many stars as the Milky Way, stars that should have taken billions of years to assemble. Yet there they are, shimmering defiantly in Webb's images. Scientists are scrambling for explanations. Some suggest we've miscalculated distances, that these galaxies aren't as far or as old as they seem. Others whisper that perhaps dark matter behaved differently in the early universe, accelerating formation in ways we don't yet understand. A few dare to suggest the unthinkable, that maybe the universe is older than we thought. Maybe the Big Bang wasn't the beginning after all. This is where the story takes a darker, stranger turn. Because if the James Webb Telescope is right, then the universe may be hiding secrets we can barely imagine. What if time itself doesn't flow the way we think? What if there were cycles of creation before the Big Bang? Universes stacked upon universes, each leaving behind traces of impossible galaxies. In ancient myths from around the world, creation is rarely a single moment. Hindu cosmology speaks of endless cycles of expansion and collapse. The Maya described worlds that were built and destroyed before ours. Could Webb be showing us echoes of something similar? Evidence that our universe isn't the first, but merely the latest in a chain stretching back into eternity? Or perhaps the problem isn't with the universe at all. Maybe the problem is with us, with our math, our physics, our arrogance in thinking we had it all figured out. What if the Big Bang Theory is simply wrong? Few scientists will say it out loud, but the possibility lingers in every discussion, every late-night conference call analyzing Webb's data. For nearly a century, the Big Bang has been our creation myth, elevated to the status of scientific truth. But just as Galileo's telescope once shattered the medieval vision of the cosmos, perhaps Webb's golden mirror has shattered ours. And here's the most unsettling thought of all. If galaxies truly exist that predate the universe as we know it, then what created them? It is one of the greatest ironies of science. The more powerful our instruments become, the less certain we are about the truth. The James Webb Space Telescope was supposed to confirm the Big Bang timeline with breathtaking clarity. Instead, it has plunged us into deeper mystery. Think of the galaxies Webb has uncovered, like ruins of an ancient civilization. Imagine stumbling into the jungle and finding vast stone cities, roads, temples, palaces, already fully built. But according to your maps, humanity had only just discovered fire. That is exactly the kind of contradiction astronomers face when they stare into Webb's images. These galaxies are not faint sparks barely coalescing out of chaos. They are grand, luminous structures that should have taken billions of years to form. Some are so massive that the math simply doesn't add up. To create them, stars would need to be born, live, and die in unimaginably fast cycles, faster than physics should allow. Even black holes, those cosmic engines of creation and destruction, would have needed more time to grow than the universe supposedly had at that stage. It's as if the cosmos skipped ahead in its own story, as if the first chapters of the book were torn out, and we're only now realizing that something crucial is missing. And so, the questions multiply. Could it be that our estimates of the universe's age are wrong? Perhaps 13.8 billion years is just a fraction of the true number. What if the cosmos is far older, 15, 20, even 30 billion years? That would give galaxies the time they need to mature before Webb captured their light. But changing the universe's age is not a simple correction. It would rewrite decades of cosmology, forcing us to rethink every calculation about expansion, dark energy, and the ultimate fate of reality itself. Other scientists propose an even more radical idea, that the Big Bang was not the beginning, but merely one in a series of beginnings. According to this view, the universe could be cyclical. It expands, it contracts, and then it explodes into life again. Each cycle might last trillions of years, leaving behind remnants, fossil galaxies, fragments of ancient structures that survive into the next round. Could Webb be detecting survivors from a previous universe, drifting like ghosts into ours? That's a possibility that is almost too grand to comprehend. It would mean our cosmos is not a singular miracle, but part of an eternal rhythm, an endless heartbeat of creation and destruction. And yet there is another possibility, a darker one. What if what Webb has revealed is evidence of something beyond our universe entirely? Some physicists whisper about the multiverse, the idea that countless universes exist, each with different laws of physics, bumping against each other like bubbles in a cosmic foam. If that is true, perhaps Webb has caught glimpses of structures bleeding in from a neighboring reality. Galaxies that do not belong to us, but to someone else's universe. Imagine for a moment what that means. That when we look into the deepest reaches of space, we are not just peering into the past. We may be peering across dimensions. What if the impossible galaxies Webb has captured are not older than the universe, but outside it altogether? The implications are staggering. If galaxies from another universe are visible to us, even faintly, then the boundary of our cosmos is not absolute. It is porous. And if it is porous, then perhaps information, energy, even life could one day cross it. But there's another, quieter explanation, one that many scientists cling to because it is less terrifying. Perhaps our models of galaxy formation are simply incomplete. Maybe galaxies can grow faster than we thought. Maybe stars are more efficient at forming in dense gas clouds, or black holes can accelerate growth in ways we don't yet understand. This would preserve the Big Bang and the timeline, but at the cost of rewriting everything we know about astrophysics. Still, even this explanation leaves a haunting unease. Because every new Webb observation seems to stretch the boundaries further, making the universe look stranger, older, and more alien than it was the day before. And this raises a chilling thought. What if the deeper we look, the less sense it will make? What if every step forward with James Webb doesn't bring clarity, but only deeper confusion? The human mind craves order, but the universe may be chaos disguised as law. Think about the night sky again. Each star you see is a story billions of years in the making. But what if hidden among them are stories we were never meant to know? What if the Webb telescope, in piercing the darkness, has opened a door that was always supposed to remain closed? This is why some scientists speak of a cosmological crisis. They whisper of theories collapsing, of textbooks becoming obsolete, of standing on the edge of a new paradigm in science. But revolutions in knowledge are never gentle. They demand sacrifice. They demand that we abandon the comforts of what we thought we knew. And perhaps the most unsettling truth is this: when you gaze into the images from James Webb, you are not just looking at distant galaxies. You are looking at the unraveling of human certainty itself. Because if galaxies older than the universe exist, then the universe may not be what we think it is at all. For centuries, humanity has sought a single story of creation, a moment of origin, a beginning that could explain everything. The Big Bang has been our modern Genesis, our scientific scripture. But now, with the James Webb telescope staring back into the abyss, we are confronted with a disturbing possibility. Maybe there was no beginning at all. Picture the universe as a vast ocean. For a long time, we believed we had found the shoreline, that singular point from which the waves began to ripple outward, the Big Bang. But Webb's discoveries are like fragments of driftwood floating from an unseen land. They hint that the ocean stretches further than our maps allow, that beyond the horizon lies something older, stranger, and perhaps eternal. Take the so-called impossible galaxies. Some appeared to have formed within just 200 million years of the supposed Big Bang. That's less time than it takes light to cross our Milky Way. In cosmic terms, that's the blink of an eye. And yet, these galaxies aren't mere smudges. They show evidence of mature stars, heavy elements, and even disk-like structures. How could that be? Heavy elements like carbon, oxygen, and iron are forged in the hearts of massive stars and then spread across space when those stars explode as supernovae. But that process takes time. Generations of stars living and dying, seeding the cosmos with the ingredients for planets and life. According to our models, the early universe should have been nearly pure hydrogen and helium. No carbon for life, no oxygen for water, nothing. And yet, Webb has revealed galaxies where heavy elements were already abundant long before they should exist. It's as if nature skipped steps, rushing headlong into complexity. Some astrophysicists have called this a cheat code universe, as though reality itself took shortcuts, bypassing billions of years of evolution to fast forward to mature structures. But science has no room for cheat codes. There must be an explanation. The question is whether that explanation will fit within our current framework or whether it will demand a new physics altogether. Consider another puzzle: supermassive black holes. Webb has detected quasars, brilliant beacons powered by black holes, millions, even billions of the mass of our Sun, existing when the universe was supposedly in its infancy. According to theory, such black holes should take billions of years to grow. And yet there they are, fully formed at a time when the cosmos should barely have cooled from its initial fire. It's as though you opened a history book and discovered skyscrapers towering over medieval villages. The timeline doesn't fit. The narrative collapses. Could these black holes be evidence of something primordial? Objects that existed before the Big Bang, surviving whatever cosmic event birthed our universe? If so, they might be relics from a time before time, a clue that our universe is not the first nor the only. This idea, once confined to the fringe, is gaining traction. Cyclical models of the universe, where big bangs are followed by big crunches, endlessly repeating, suggest that traces of previous cycles might bleed into our own. The impossible galaxies could be fossils from a universe that came before. But then another possibility arises. What if these structures are not fossils at all, but invaders? Evidence of a parallel universe overlapping with ours, just enough for its light to leak through. If so, the James Webb telescope might not just be a time machine. It could be a window into other realities. And here lies the most haunting question of all. If we can see into them, could something there see into us? The thought is unsettling, almost terrifying. But science has taught us one lesson again and again. The universe is always stranger than we imagine. But before we lose ourselves in speculation, let us return to the ground beneath our feet, to the human story of confronting the unknown. Because what we are experiencing now is not the first time science has faced an existential crisis. When Galileo first pointed his crude telescope at Jupiter, he saw moons orbiting another world. In that moment, Earth was dethroned from its central place in the cosmos. The Church resisted, authorities raged, but reality could not be silenced. The same pattern repeated when Darwin revealed the brutal elegance of evolution, when Einstein bent time and space into curves, when quantum mechanics reduced certainty itself to probability. Each time, humanity resisted. Each time, reality prevailed. And so it may be again. The James Webb Telescope has not destroyed cosmology, it has liberated it. For decades, the Big Bang has been a closed system, a neat box into which every observation had to fit. But Webb has forced the lid open. New ideas, once dismissed as wild speculation, now march into the spotlight. Take Roger Penrose's theory of conformal cyclic cosmology. He suggests that universes expand, fade, and die, but in the endless cold of their death, a new Big Bang is born. Each aeon gives way to another, leaving faint imprints on the next. Could Webb's impossible galaxies be such imprints? Whispers of a previous universe echoing in ours? Or consider the bounce theories, where instead of a single beginning, the universe oscillates like a heartbeat. Big Bang, expansion, contraction, collapse, and rebirth. In such a model, time has no true beginning. It stretches infinitely backward, an eternal chain of cosmic cycles. And Webb may have just shown us the fingerprints of earlier beats in that rhythm. Even more radical are those who invoke the multiverse. Countless universes bubbling into existence, each with its own rules. In some, stars never form. In others, gravity crushes everything into black holes. We, by chance, inhabit one that allows life. But perhaps Webb has glimpsed the edges of another bubble pressing against ours. Perhaps those galaxies do not belong to us at all. Of course, not all scientists are willing to abandon caution. Some argue that Webb's discoveries may be explained without tearing down the entire Big Bang. Perhaps star formation was simply more efficient in the early universe. Perhaps dark matter clumped in ways we haven't yet modeled, accelerating growth. Perhaps we are misinterpreting Webb's light. But even these careful voices admit one thing: something does not add up. The universe is misbehaving, and misbehavior in science is often the sign of a deeper truth waiting to be uncovered. Yet while scientists debate models and equations, a larger question looms, one that reaches beyond physics into philosophy itself. If the universe is older, stranger, or more infinite than we ever imagined, what does that mean for us? For centuries, we believed humanity occupied a privileged place in the cosmos, first at the center of creation, then as the favored product of a singular beginning. But Webb suggests something humbling. We may be but one note in an endless symphony. Our universe might not be unique, our origin not absolute. This realization is both terrifying and beautiful. Terrifying because it means we may never uncover a single final truth. Beautiful because it means the cosmos is far grander than our imagination can contain. And perhaps that is the ultimate gift of the James Webb Space Telescope. It has not given us answers. It has given us better questions. Questions that pierce deeper than physics. Questions about eternity, about creation, about our place in the great unfolding story of existence. And one question above all: if galaxies older than the universe exist, then what or who came before the beginning? Imagine standing at the edge of a dark forest. You shine a torch into the trees, expecting to see only a few steps ahead. Instead, you find massive towers, structures so vast they shouldn't exist, rising silently in the night. That is what James Webb has done. It has turned its golden mirror toward the cosmic forest, and what it found was not the fragile seedlings of galaxies, but ancient giants already in full bloom. The deeper scientists look, the more anomalies they discover. Webb has captured galaxies with spiral arms, those delicate, majestic swirls we associate with mature galaxies like the Milky Way, existing less than 1 billion years after the supposed Big Bang. Spiral arms take time, billions of years of gravitational choreography, and yet there they are, dancing at the dawn of time. The telescope has also shown evidence of unexpectedly large populations of stars known as population 3 stars. These stars, according to theory, should be the very first. Massive, short-lived furnaces made almost entirely of hydrogen and helium. They should burn hot, live fast, and die young, seeding the universe with the heavier elements needed for the second generation of stars. But Webb's data suggests that even these ancient stars may have formed too quickly, in too great numbers, and alongside galaxies already rich with heavy elements. It is like arriving at an archaeological site where the foundations of a city should be, but instead of stone tools and crude shelters, you find skyscrapers, highways, and libraries filled with books written in languages no one should yet know. This leaves us with an unsettling thought. Perhaps the universe is not linear. Perhaps its evolution is not a simple arrow from simple to complex. Maybe complexity was there from the start, as though written into the very code of existence. But who or what wrote that code? Some scientists suggest new physics might be hiding in the early cosmos. Maybe gravity behaved differently at the beginning. Maybe dark matter, this invisible substance that makes up most of the universe's mass, played a far greater role in shaping galaxies than we ever suspected. Or maybe there is a new kind of matter altogether, something we have never detected, accelerating cosmic growth behind the scenes. But others step back from the equations and ask the question no scientist dares to put in a peer-reviewed paper. What if there was intelligence involved? The idea sounds absurd, even dangerous, yet some theorists speculate that if the universe is a simulation, as a growing number of physicists entertain, then what Webb has found could be artifacts of previous code, leftover structures from earlier runs of the simulation. In other words, glitches in reality. If galaxies appear older than the universe, maybe it's because the program was restarted, but fragments of the old save file remain. It sounds like science fiction, and yet science fiction has a strange history of becoming science fact. For now, though, most scientists retreat to safer ground. They search for new models, new tweaks to the Big Bang theory that can preserve the timeline while accommodating Webb's revelations. But beneath the surface, there is unease. Because every image from Webb is not just a discovery, it is a reminder that the universe may be fundamentally unknowable. Still, humanity has always thrived on mystery, and this is perhaps the greatest one of all. If galaxies older than the universe exist, then maybe our concept of the beginning has been wrong all along. Throughout history, when faced with cosmic mysteries, humanity has turned to myth, and perhaps it is no coincidence that many ancient cultures described a universe without a beginning or end. In Hindu cosmology, the universe breathes in cycles of creation and destruction, each lasting billions of years. Brahma, the creator, dreams the world into existence, and when he awakens, the dream dissolves, only to begin again. The Maya believed in successive worlds, each destroyed and replaced. The ancient Greeks spoke of eternal recurrence, of cosmic ages repeating endlessly. What if these myths were not merely stories? What if they were intuitive glimpses of a truth that modern science is only now rediscovering? That creation is not a single event, but a rhythm. James Webb may have just given us the first physical evidence of that rhythm. Impossible galaxies that are not mistakes, not illusions, but survivors. Survivors from previous cycles of the cosmos. And if that is true, then the universe is far older than we can fathom. Not billions, but trillions of years. Not one beginning, but countless. Time itself stretching backward without end. But here is the paradox. If the universe is eternal, then what does older even mean? To say a galaxy is older than the universe becomes meaningless, like saying a river is older than water. Perhaps we are trapped by language, by metaphors too small for the reality they seek to describe. And so we must ask a different question. Not when did the universe begin, but why does it exist at all? Webb cannot answer that. No telescope can. But it can push us to confront the limits of our knowledge. Consider this. When you look at the light from those ancient galaxies, you are seeing photons that have traveled across space for billions of years. They began their journey long before Earth existed, long before the sun ignited, long before life. And yet those photons arrived here, captured by human hands, transformed into images glowing on our screens. What are the odds? That light, which should have been lost forever, instead reached us. Perhaps the universe itself wants to be known. Or perhaps we are simply giving meaning to an accident of physics. Either way, the effect is the same. The James Webb Telescope has turned the night sky into a mirror reflecting our deepest questions. Are we alone? Are we a fleeting spark in an endless cycle? Or are we part of a story so vast, so ancient, that our role can barely be measured? One thing is certain. The more Webb shows us, the less we can cling to old certainties. We thought we had found the beginning. Instead, we may have found the truth that there is no beginning at all. Every great discovery in science begins with a crack in the wall of certainty. Sometimes the crack is small, like the unexplained orbit of Mercury, which led Einstein to revolutionize physics. Sometimes it is vast, like the faint cosmic microwave background, which gave birth to the Big Bang theory itself. But what James Webb has revealed is not a crack, it is a canyon, wide and gaping, threatening to swallow the entire landscape of modern cosmology. Because if galaxies older than the universe exist, then our picture of time itself may be flawed. We think of time as a river. It begins at the source, the Big Bang, and flows ever forward. But what if time is more like an ocean tide, rushing in and out, advancing and retreating? Or what if time is not linear at all? What if past, present, and future exist simultaneously, layered upon each other like pages of a book? In such a universe, older and younger lose meaning. A galaxy we think of as impossibly ancient may, in some sense, still be forming. Or it may exist in another fold of time altogether, leaking into our view through cracks in the cosmic fabric. This is not just speculation. Some physicists propose that time may emerge from deeper structures of reality rather than being fundamental. In this view, time is like temperature, a property that emerges when many particles interact, but not an ultimate building block of nature. If so, then perhaps the galaxies Webb has revealed are not older than the universe. They are simply artifacts of a deeper order we cannot yet perceive. But such ideas are unsettling. They demand we abandon the comfort of beginnings and endings, the neat story of creation that has guided science for a century. And human beings crave stories. That is why the Big Bang was so powerful. It gave us a narrative, a cosmic birth. But Webb whispers that the story is incomplete, that there are missing chapters, hidden volumes, entire libraries of history beyond our reach. Consider, too, what these revelations mean for our search for life. If galaxies matured faster than expected, then planets, stars, and even biological chemistry may have arisen earlier than we imagined. Could life itself be older than the universe as we know it? Could civilizations have existed before ours, not just in other galaxies, but in other cosmic cycles? It is a chilling thought. Humanity, so young and fragile, may not be the first, nor the last. And perhaps we are not alone even now. Some thinkers wonder, if cycles of universes exist, could intelligence survive across them? Could an ancient civilization, older than time itself, have found a way to endure through the collapse and rebirth of cosmos after cosmos? If so, then the galaxies Webb sees might not just be natural relics. They might be monuments, beacons, signs left behind by minds that understood reality far better than we do. It sounds like myth, like legend, and yet throughout history, myths have preserved truths science would only later confirm. Myths spoke of invisible forces before we named them gravity. Myths imagined countless worlds before we knew of exoplanets. Myths placed creation not in a single moment, but in endless cycles. Perhaps what Webb is showing us is not new at all. Perhaps it is something humanity has always sensed, that the universe is vast beyond measure, ancient beyond comprehension, and layered with mysteries we are only beginning to uncover. And so we stand now at the edge of understanding, staring into images of galaxies that should not exist. They defy our models. They mock our equations. They force us to ask the question science fears most. What if we are wrong? When we stare into the images from James Webb, we see not just distant galaxies. We see a reflection of our oldest stories. Because long before telescopes, long before physics and mathematics, human beings gazed at the sky and felt that same shock, that same awe, that same sense of staring into something that should not exist. Every ancient civilization told its own version of creation, but what unites them is not simplicity, it is complexity. The Maya did not speak of one world, but many, built and destroyed in succession. The Hindus envisioned kalpas, vast cosmic days and nights spanning billions of years. The Egyptians spoke of cycles of rebirth, the phoenix rising again from its ashes. Even Plato, in his account of Atlantis, described civilizations that rose, flourished, and fell long before his own time, hinting at a hidden rhythm of history. What if these stories were not fantasies? What if they were fractured memories of a truth the universe itself whispers, a truth James Webb is only now confirming? Imagine this. Humanity has always felt that history repeats. Empires rise and fall, cities are swallowed by the sea, knowledge is gained, lost, and rediscovered. Could it be that this pattern exists not just on Earth, but in the cosmos itself? That universes are born, destroyed, and reborn, each leaving behind echoes, fossils, impossible galaxies that defy the illusion of a single beginning? If so, then perhaps Webb is not just showing us galaxies, perhaps it is showing us the ruins of past universes, the cosmic equivalent of Atlantis glittering in the dark. And if those ruins exist, might they hold secrets? Evidence that life, intelligence, or even civilizations once spanned across cosmic cycles? This is where the mind reels, because if civilizations have existed before us and may exist after, then what is humanity but a fleeting spark in an endless night? But perhaps that is the wrong way to see it. Perhaps we are not insignificant. Perhaps we are part of the rhythm itself. Each cycle needs its music, each age its dreamers. And maybe our role is not to end the mystery, but to join the chorus, to be one voice in the endless story of creation. Still, the paradox remains. Galaxies older than the universe, civilizations older than time, a cosmos that refuses to obey the rules we have written for it. And so we are left with a choice. We can cling to the safety of old theories, patching the cracks with new equations, or we can embrace the terrifying, exhilarating possibility that reality is stranger than we ever dared to imagine. And perhaps in that strangeness lies the real beginning of wisdom. There is a curious pattern in the myths of the ancient world. They all speak of a time before time, a golden age, a forgotten epoch when gods walked among men, when knowledge was greater than it is today. And then a fall, a flood, a destruction, and the cycle began again. From the tablets of Mesopotamia to the sacred texts of India, from the legends of the Hopi to the scrolls of Egypt, echoes of this pattern remain. The Sumerians spoke of civilizations that rose and vanished long before their own, ruled by gods who descended from the stars. The Egyptians told of Zep-Tepi, the first time when divine beings established order on earth. Even the Bible preserves a memory of a world destroyed by water, a reset of creation itself. What if these were not mere stories? What if they were distorted memories of a truth so vast we can scarcely grasp it? Because what James Webb is showing us now mirrors these ancient tales. Galaxies that should not exist, stars rising too early, too complete, only to vanish again into the silence of space. Cosmic cycles of birth and death, written in light across the sky. Could it be that the universe itself keeps records, the way Earth keeps fossils and stone? Webb may be our first tool sharp enough to dig into that cosmic archaeology. And what it is finding looks eerily like the ruins of forgotten universes, galactic Atlantean empires drowned in the tide of eternity. Some scientists resist such comparisons, insisting on equations and data alone. But human imagination is older than science, and myths may hold clues our instruments are only now beginning to confirm. Could the Sumerians' tales of sky gods be a cultural memory of contact with beings who survived across cycles of universes? Could the flood myths, present on nearly every continent, be echoes of not just earthly catastrophes, but cosmic ones? Think of it this way. If civilizations have risen before, they may have learned to survive resets. Perhaps they embedded warnings or blueprints into the very structure of galaxies, into ratios, patterns, alignments of stars. Perhaps what we call natural order is in part a message, one written across the cosmos in a language we have not yet learned to read. It would explain why reality feels so finely tuned, why the constants of physics, gravity, electromagnetism, the speed of light are so perfectly balanced to allow stars, planets, and life. Was it chance? Or was it design left by ancient minds as the universe was reborn? Of course, to mainstream science, this borders on heresy. But history shows us that heresies sometimes become truth. Once the Earth was the center of the cosmos. Once the continents were thought fixed and immovable. Once space itself was believed to be empty. Every great leap forward has required abandoning the comfort of certainty. And James Webb has made certainty impossible, because those impossible galaxies are not going away. Each new image adds to the chorus of contradictions. Galaxies with too much mass, stars with too many heavy elements, black holes too massive for their supposed age. Together they form a riddle whispered across time. You do not understand the beginning, because there was no beginning. And so humanity finds itself at a crossroads. We can keep rewriting equations, hoping to fit the universe into our narrow frame. Or we can step back and accept that our frame itself may be wrong. That time, space, even reality itself is stranger, older, more infinite than we dared to believe. Maybe the ancients already knew this. Maybe their myths, their warnings, their stories of worlds before us were not primitive superstition, but echoes of truths we had forgotten. Truths we're only now, with James Webb's golden eye, beginning to see again. And if that is true, then the most haunting question remains. Who remembered before us? Who left the ruins in the stars? And are they still out there watching? At first, the discoveries of James Webb filled scientists with wonder. Galaxies glittering like jewels at the edge of time, stars burning in colors Hubble could never reveal. It was a triumph, a celebration. But as the data accumulated, wonder began to curdle into something else, unease. Because the deeper Webb looks, the stranger the universe becomes. It is as though the telescope has not merely revealed the past, it has revealed something we were never meant to see. Astronomers whisper about the cosmological crisis, but that phrase is too sterile, too academic to capture what is really happening. What Webb has uncovered is not just a scientific puzzle, it is an existential wound, a rupture in our understanding of reality itself. Think about what it means. Galaxies that should not exist. Stars born before there was time to birth them. Black holes too massive to fit into any model. It is as though the cosmos is mocking us, placing contradictions in plain sight, daring us to explain them. And then comes the most unsettling thought of all. What if these contradictions are not accidents? What if the universe is not chaotic, but deliberate? What if someone, or something, wants us to find them? This possibility creeps into the margins of scientific papers, never spoken aloud. But in private conversations, late at night, the idea emerges. Could the galaxies Webb has observed be more than natural structures? Could they be signs, markers, messages etched into the fabric of the universe? After all, what better canvas for communication than the stars themselves? What greater monument than a galaxy arranged to defy natural law? If an ancient intelligence wished to leave a message that could last across eons, across cycles of universes, would they not write it in light itself? It sounds absurd, yet the thought lingers. Some galaxies Webb has observed appear suspiciously symmetrical, almost too orderly for their supposed age. Spiral arms forming far too early, structures too complex, too fast? Are we seeing the fingerprints of cosmic engineers? And then comes the most unsettling thought of all. What if these contradictions are not messages for us? What if we are intruding on something we were never meant to witness? Consider this. For billions of years, the universe hid its secrets behind the veil of distance and time. No eye could pierce it. No mind could grasp it. But then humanity built a mirror of gold and placed it in the heavens. For the first time, we pulled back the veil. And what if, in doing so, we crossed a line? Perhaps the universe is not empty, but observed. Perhaps intelligence, older, stranger, eternal, watches from those impossible galaxies. And now for the first time, it sees us looking back. The idea is chilling, that Webb has not just revealed the past, but has made us visible. That in the act of observation, we ourselves have been observed. After all, we assume we are explorers, peering into the unknown. But what if we are not explorers at all? What if we are the ones being discovered? And so as Webb sends back image after image, one cannot help but feel a strange tension, awe, yes, but also dread. Because the further we peer into the dark, the more it feels as though something, somewhere, is peering back. Perhaps that is why these galaxies feel so unsettling. They are not merely older than the universe, they feel alive. Alive with mystery, alive with memory, alive with a presence that whispers through the silence of space. You are not the first, and you will not be the last. Science is built on skepticism. For every astonishing claim, there must be caution. And so, even as whispers of impossible galaxies ripple through the halls of astronomy, the guardians of reason push back. Perhaps, they argue, we are simply mistaken. Maybe the galaxies aren't as old as they seem. Maybe Webb's instruments, though advanced, are tricking us with illusions of light. Perhaps what looks like a fully formed spiral is a mirage, a trick of gravitational lensing, where massive objects warp space and distort distant images. Or maybe the math is off. Measuring cosmic distances relies on delicate calibrations. The stretching of light, the faint fingerprints of hydrogen absorption. A small error could inflate ages, making galaxies appear older than they really are. To some scientists, Webb is not revealing impossibilities. It is revealing our own fallibility. This is the rational voice, the voice that insists on patience, that warns against jumping to conclusions. And yet, it is also a voice trembling beneath its own words, because the anomalies keep piling up. One galaxy might be an error, two, a coincidence, but Webb has found dozens, patterns too persistent to ignore. And so, beneath the calm exterior of scientific debate, there is a quiet storm. Some cling to the Big Bang, desperately patching the model with new equations. Others dare to suggest that the cracks may never close, that a revolution in cosmology is not just possible, but inevitable. But revolutions are dangerous. They demand the old gods be torn down. And the Big Bang has been a god of modern science for nearly a century. To dethrone it would be to admit that we have been wrong, not about details, but about the very origin of everything. That is why the debate has an almost religious intensity. For some, defending the Big Bang is defending the foundation of all modern physics. For others, tearing it down is the only path to truth. And as the arguments rage, the images remain silent, unyielding. Galaxies that should not exist, black holes that should not exist, evidence that refuses to bend to theory. It is here that the unease returns. Because if the scientific explanations fail, then what remains? Some whisper that the universe itself may not follow consistent laws, that perhaps the rules of physics we know are local, temporary, bound to our corner of reality, but not universal. If so, then the cosmos is not a book of law, but a shifting dream, rewriting itself as it unfolds. Others retreat to the idea of cycles, endless rebirths of universes, each leaving scars on the next. In this view, Webb is not showing us anomalies, it is showing us memories, fossils of universes past. And some others, at the edge of daring, suggest the impossible, that what Webb reveals is not random at all, that there is order beneath the chaos, a hidden hand. Because the galaxies Webb has found do not just defy physics, they almost seem to laugh at it, as though someone arranged them to catch our attention, to force us to ask questions we are not ready to answer. Is it possible? Could ancient intelligence, older than stars, have seeded the cosmos with signs, not for themselves, but for those who would come later, creatures like us, staring into the void and daring to ask, why? It is a terrifying thought, because if such intelligence exists, then it has already succeeded. It has made us look. It has made us wonder. And perhaps that was the point all along. What if the universe is not a machine, but a story? We have treated reality like a clock since Newton, gears and springs, forces and masses, everything predictable if you know all the numbers. But James Webb has forced a different metaphor upon us. The cosmos behaves less like a clock and more like a novel. Foreshadowing, echoes, recurring motifs. Characters, galaxies, stars, black holes arrive too early in the plot, as if someone turned the pages out of order. Stories need meaning. Meaning requires memory. And memory, in physics, is structure, patterns preserved against the pull of entropy. That is why Webb's revelations sting so sharply. They look like memory in the wrong place, mature structures where only chaos should live. It is as if the opening chapter of the universe already contains callbacks to chapters we have not yet read. So perhaps we should ask not, how old is this galaxy, but whose memory is it? Information theorists have long suspected that reality and information are twins. A bit flipped here, a particle shifted there, and the universe remembers. Black holes are not merely devourers, they are archivists, hoarding information at their horizons. Quantum mechanics suggests that observing a system is not passive, it is an act that writes. To look is to carve a sentence into the stone of the world. Then consider what Webb actually is, a ritual of attention, a golden eye, cooled to near absolute zero, opening in darkness to gather ancient photons and translate them into meaning. The telescope is not just collecting light, it is forcing the universe to reveal its drafts, marginalia, and palimpsests, the erased words beneath the final script. If those words say, "There was no single beginning," is that not the most profound sentence ever recovered from the margins of creation? We have always carried a hunger for such sentences. Pilgrims crossing deserts to find a prophecy, sailors chasing horizons to find the edge of the world, monks copying myths to keep a fragile flame alive. The scientist, the poet, the stargazer, they are the same character, wearing different masks. Each believes there is a pattern worth finding, a voice worth hearing. Webb, perhaps, is the loudest hearing aid our species has ever built. But meaning exacts a price, humility. If the universe is older than our story for it, our cosmology must bow. If time is emergent, like a rainbow that appears only when conditions align, then before and after are conveniences, not commandments. The arrow of time we feel in our bones may be local weather, not climate. Somewhere, sometime, the wind may blow backward. Somewhere, those impossible galaxies are not impossibly early. They are simply sideways to us, their clocks tilted relative to ours. And yet the most sobering possibility is not metaphysical at all. It is human. Perhaps Webb has simply revealed how deeply we crave certainty. We were so eager to complete the jigsaw that we mistook the box art for the finished picture. The Big Bang gave us edges and corners, a comforting frame. Webb slid a new piece onto the table, brilliant, jagged, undeniable, and it did not fit. What do we do with the piece that breaks the frame? Most people hide it. The brave build a bigger puzzle. Still, whispering through these grand philosophies runs a personal thread. What does this mean for you, for me, for a person walking home beneath a tired streetlight? If the universe is cyclical, if time peels like bark from an endless tree, then our lives are not singular flares but unique verses in an immortal chorus. That need not diminish us. A single violin line can pierce the heart even as the symphony roars around it. Yet the hooks keep tugging. If memory is written into the scaffolding of reality, who, if anyone, chooses what gets remembered? Why are some patterns promoted to permanence while others dissolve? In biology, evolution selects. In culture, audiences decide. In physics, the selection is harsher. Only structures that resist entropy survive. Webb's older-than-allowed galaxies look like champions of resistance. They are victory trophies from tournaments we didn't know were played. And there is one more tournament, perhaps the most daring, that we can no longer ignore. The tournament of intelligences against oblivion. If minds existed in a universe before ours, they would face a cruel constraint: how to send anything, message, machine, meaning, across the cataclysm of reset. Paper burns, planets break, stars die. What endures? Gravity, geometry, light. If you wish to whisper across the end of the world, you would not use ink. You would sculpt the opening conditions of the next universe. You would plant seeds that look like impossible spirals at impossible times, because that is what the next generation of minds would notice. This is not proof, it is a dare. A dare to look for intention without surrendering to superstition. A dare to examine symmetries, alignments, metallicities, black hole masses, not merely as accidents, but as candidate sentences. If no intention is found, fine. We will still have learned that nature writes with an extravagance we underestimated. If intention is found, if even one unambiguous glyph hides in the rubble of ancient light, then history will fracture into before discovery and after. But whether authored by physics or by persons unknown, the message we have already received is unmistakable. Grow up. Our place is not central. Our models are not sacred. Our beginning is not singular. The universe is a cathedral with doors we have not yet learned to open. Webb hands us a key and asks if our courage matches our curiosity. Here, another hook: the cost of the key. Already, researchers speak of the tension between expansion rate measurements, a polite word for disagreement that refuses to die. Already, instruments planned for the next decade sharpen their teeth to bite into the paradox. This is how paradigms break, quietly, then all at once. A conference session, a preprint, a summer school lecture where a young scientist says the unsayable, and other young scientists feel the oxygen rush back into the room. The Big Bang will not vanish, it will molt. A theory becomes a special case. A beginning becomes a beginning of a chapter, not of the book. And what of us, the readers? Perhaps our role is not to demand a last page, but to savor the fact that there is no last page. If universes are seasonal, then wonder is perennial. If time is layered, then awe is recursive. We are allowed, within our small span, to witness the universe surprise itself. How extraordinary is that? How rare to be alive precisely when a mirror of gold told us that our creation myth is too small for our skies. Stand outside tonight. Look up. Remember that the starlight touching your eyes may be older than your bones, your species, your planet. Older even than the calendar we wrote for reality. Then remember this. You too emit light. Not photons, perhaps, but choices, questions, acts of attention that ripple through other minds. The universe is not only seen, it is seeing through you. If that sounds grandiose, reduce it to a vow. Keep looking, keep asking, keep building mirrors and stories and equations vast enough to hold surprise. Because somewhere, beyond the veil Webb has already torn, waits the next contradiction, the next impossible relic, the next invitation to grow larger than our fear. And if there truly are galaxies older than the universe, then perhaps the real revelation is simpler than all the theories and myths. Beginnings are not places, they are permissions. They are the moment we decide that the unknown is allowed to change us. There is a strange silence surrounding James Webb's discoveries, not in the data. The telescope's instruments hum faithfully, pouring torrents of information down to Earth. The silence lives in the reaction. Official press releases frame the findings in careful, measured language. Unexpectedly massive galaxies, challenging our models, requiring refinements. Polite words, academic words. But behind closed doors, some scientists confess a different emotion: fear. Fear not of the telescope malfunctioning, nor of their theories being overturned. Fear of the unknown that grows larger with every new image. Because the deeper Webb stares, the less the universe resembles the one we thought we lived in. This fear is familiar. It is the fear sailors once felt when maps ended in blank parchment, marked with sea monsters. It is the fear priests felt when Galileo's telescope showed moons orbiting Jupiter instead of Earth. It is the fear of a story unraveling, of a myth losing its power. And the Big Bang, for all its equations and evidence, has been our myth of origin. What happens when the myth dies? The public has only glimpsed fragments of this unease, a headline here, an article there, but in the conferences, in the late-night calls between research teams, the whispers grow. What if the timeline is wrong? What if time itself does not flow as we think? What if those galaxies are evidence not of an early universe, but of another universe bleeding into ours? And here the fear sharpens. Because if that is true, then the veil between universes is thinner than we believed. If light can cross it, what else might? There are theories, unpublished, half-joking, half-dreadful, that what Webb has seen are not just galaxies, but intrusions, structures from another reality, cast into ours like shadows on a wall. To look at them is not just to look into the past, but to trespass into another domain. And trespass, in any story, risks awakening the attention of what lives there. It is almost Lovecraftian in tone, though dressed in the sterile garments of astrophysics. A universe far older than we imagined. Structures that do not obey our laws. Intelligence, perhaps, woven into the scaffolding of galaxies themselves. Scientists will not use words like haunting or ominous in their journals, but the silence in their voices betrays them. And then there is the deepest fear of all. Not that we are wrong, but that we are right. That the Big Bang did happen, but it was not the beginning. That cycles of universes rise and collapse, each leaving relics behind. That Webb's impossible galaxies are those relics, ruins of previous realities. And if ruins exist, then builders once existed too. What happened to them? Did they perish in the collapse of their cosmos? Did they transcend it, seeding the next universe with their memory? Or are they still here, embedded in the fabric of reality itself, waiting? It is not hard to imagine them watching, because what else is a galaxy but an eye? Swirling arms like lashes, a black hole pupil staring across eternity. Webb has shown us millions of such eyes staring back through the abyss, and now, for the first time, we are staring into them with a clarity that borders on intimacy. Perhaps this is why the discoveries feel unsettling, even to those who should feel only joy. Because when you look at Webb's images, you cannot shake the feeling that you are not the only one doing the looking. That somewhere, something vast and patient has been waiting for this moment, for the moment a young species finally builds a mirror strong enough to meet its gaze. And in that gaze lies both wonder and terror. Wonder, because it means we are not alone in the story of creation. Terror, because we have no idea what role we play in it. Are we readers of the tale, or merely characters? Are we witnesses to a mystery, or the next chapter of it? One thing is certain, we cannot look away. Humanity has opened its golden eye, and the universe has answered. The question now is not whether we are ready for the truth. The question is whether the truth is ready for us. There comes a moment in every great story where curiosity crosses into danger. The explorer steps too far into the ruins, the diver swims too deep into the trench, the astronomer peers too long into the dark. James Webb, for all its brilliance, has carried us to that threshold. At first, the telescope felt like a gift, an extension of our sight, a miracle of engineering. But the images it has returned are starting to feel like something else entirely, less like discovery, more like disclosure. As if someone or something has chosen this moment in history to reveal itself. Look again at the galaxies Webb has captured, those vast spirals, impossibly mature at the dawn of time. They don't just defy our models, they almost perform for us, arranged, aligned, luminous in ways that feel deliberate. Stars packed with heavy elements before there was time to forge them. Black holes grown too massive, too fast, as though they were seeded, sculpted, written into being. It is unsettling to imagine that these structures are not accidents of physics, but signatures, cosmic monoliths staring back across eternity, waiting for the first mind capable of seeing them. If that is true, then humanity's moment of revelation has already happened. By launching Webb, we triggered it. We opened the page they left for us. And here is where awe begins to twist into dread. Because what if these are not messages, but warnings? What if the impossibility of these galaxies is the point? A way of saying, you were not first, and you will not last. There is a theory, rarely spoken aloud, that advanced intelligences might not communicate in words or signals, but in paradoxes. That the most efficient way to deliver knowledge across the abyss of time is to leave behind impossibilities, things that cannot exist unless the story is larger than you believe, things that force your mind to expand or break. And this is exactly what Webb has shown us. Impossibilities. Galaxies older than the universe, stars that burn with metals that should not yet exist, black holes that sneer at the limits of growth. These are not just anomalies, they are provocations. But provocations by whom? By what? Perhaps by no one. Perhaps the universe itself is the author, indifferent and vast, using paradox as its punctuation. Or perhaps in some darker possibility, they are authored, left by beings whose presence we cannot yet comprehend, beings who may not be kind nor cruel, but simply other. What would it mean if the universe itself is already inhabited, not by life as we know it, but by intelligence as old as galaxies, as patient as cycles of creation? We search for civilizations on exoplanets, scanning for faint radio waves. But what if civilizations are not on planets at all? What if civilizations are galaxies? Structures so immense we cannot distinguish their architecture from natural law. The thought chills the blood, because if that is true, then we are not peering into empty space. We are intruding into a cathedral built by hands we cannot imagine, and those hands may notice us. Already some scientists admit an uncanny feeling when staring at Webb's deep fields, the sense of being observed, not merely observing. Thousands of galaxies, millions of light years away, arranged like an audience in some vast theater, and in the center, us, a fragile species staring back with our first true telescope. We call Webb a mirror. Perhaps that is more literal than we know. Perhaps in those impossible galaxies, we are not just seeing the past, perhaps we are seeing ourselves, reflected through the gaze of something that has been watching all along. And here is the final dreadful thought. What if that gaze is not passive? What if in looking back, we have awakened the story? It is said in myth that forbidden knowledge always carries a price. Prometheus stole fire and was punished. Pandora opened the box and unleashed the unknown. Humanity built a golden eye, lifted it into the heavens, and asked the universe to show itself. The universe answered. Now we must ask ourselves, what else did we just invite into view?
There is a moment in every haunting when the house breathes back. The floorboards that once only creaked now seem to listen. The portraits on the wall no longer merely hang, but watch. With James Webb, that moment arrived when the data began to rhyme. Not a single image, not one spectacular anomaly, but a chorus. Patterns separated by oceans of space, echoing each other with unnerving precision. It began innocently enough, a handful of high redshift galaxies showing synchronized pulses in their light curves, tiny fluctuations buried in noise that repeated with uncanny similarity. Coincidence, the careful voices said. Instruments whisper, pipelines stutter. But then a second field, half a sky away, sang the same rhythm, then a third, then a fourth. Imagine standing in different deserts on different nights and hearing the same drumbeat roll across the dunes, a beat too regular for wind, a tempo too deliberate for chance. At what point do you stop calling it weather and start calling it music? Engineers triple-checked everything. They inverted, masked, reprocessed. They fed the raw counts through independent pipelines built by teams that barely speak the same programming language. The pulses refused to die. If anything, they sharpened, like a message emerging as you learn the code. What if the universe has been humming all along and we only just acquired ears? Here is the hook that snapped even the skeptics upright. The intervals between the pulses, when converted through the redshifts of their host galaxies, aligned into a simple sequence, integer ratios, small whole numbers, repeating across distances that light cannot cross in time to synchronize. Like lanterns on cliffs flashing to ships, except the cliffs are millions of light years apart and the sea between them is the beginning of time. Could gravity do that? Could dark matter, turbulence, feedback, any of our beloved words stretch far enough to cover the gap? Perhaps a new instability, a primordial resonance, a trick we have not imagined. Science will always try to pay its debts with new ideas. And yet there is a smell to patterns, the scent of intention. This one reeked of it. Then came the spectrographs. A thin, stubborn line in the near-infrared, hydrogen's ancient signature, showed a faint modulation, as if someone had braided a second ghostly signal into it. The modulation repeated with the same ratios. It was not bright, it was not loud, it was merely consistent, like a whisper you can't unhear once you know it's there. If you wished to speak across the longest distances and the longest times, you would not choose radio. Stars would drown you out. Planets would smother you in noise. You would choose something woven through the cosmos, something that survives expansion and death and rebirth. You would choose hydrogen's song because the universe cannot help but sing along. The room where the team first overlaid the fields was too small for the size of the realization. A dozen people hunched at too many monitors, eyes burning with the blue light of secrets. The plots matched, the ratios matched, the timing matched after correcting for cosmic drift. And then someone said the sentence nobody wants to be the first to say. I think it's not from here. Silence. The kind that has gravity, the kind that turns scientists into priests. From where then? From before? From beside? From within the laws we thought were ours alone? The room did not answer, the data did. Another field, another echo, the drumbeat widening into a grid across the sky, as if monoliths had been planted in the fabric of space itself, each one tolling the same impossible time. You could call it a Morse code for civilizations that speak in galaxies. You could call it an imprint left by a previous universe, a watermark bleeding up through the paper of ours. You could call it a natural resonance we do not yet understand. All three readings point to the same cliff. We are not at the bottom of knowledge, we are at the first step of the next staircase. And still unease sharpened into dread, because the pattern did not persist. It resolved. Ratios collapsed into phrases, mathematical identities any mind with arithmetic would recognize, then geometry a child could draw in sand, then a progression of constants that tie reality together like stitches. Not language as we speak it, but language as the universe writes it. The message, if that is what it was, did not flatter us. It did not mention life or hope or destiny. It did not praise or threaten. It did what bedrock does. It showed itself and dared you to stand upon it. But in that austerity, another meaning flickered, an invitation to join the conversation at the only level guaranteed to endure: pattern, proportion, number. And then the final twist of the knife, a new field, a familiar rhythm, but with a coda appended, an extra ratio none had seen before. When corrected for redshift and placed against the others, the coda lined up into a single terrifying curve, a countdown, or something so like it that no one in the room slept that night. The sequence pointed not backward to origins, but forward to an intersection. Not a date, dates are parochial, but a configuration, a geometry our sky will wear when certain alignments mature, when certain distances equal certain harmonies. What arrives when the universe clears its throat? Perhaps nothing. Perhaps we are children jumping at thunder and calling it a voice. But the human heart is an instrument tuned to pattern. We cannot help but feel the hum in our bones. Engineers began to draft targets for the appointed configuration. Philosophers wrote manifestos and threw them away. The careful voices learned to speak softly because the loudest people were not the most serious. Quiet spread like weather. And beneath that quiet, a second silence gathered, the hush before a curtain lifts. If galaxies older than the universe are ruins, then the sequence is a map. If they are monuments, the sequence is the plaque. If they are natural, the sequence is a law we have only now earned the right to notice. In all three readings, one truth survives. We are expected to show up. Stand outside. Look up. You cannot see the pattern with your eyes, but you can feel the old terror and the new tenderness braided together. The fear of being small, the joy of being invited. The night is no longer a ceiling, it is a page turning. And somewhere, beyond the frost rim of vision, something vast and patient waits at the rendezvous our sky will soon become. What will we say when the dark finally speaks? What will it say when we answer? And what if the first word has already been spoken, and it is this: begin?
We always imagine the end of discovery as a triumph, a flag planted, a final equation carved into stone, humanity crowned as the species that solved the riddle of existence. But the revelations of James Webb have delivered something very different. Not an ending, but a trembling threshold. Not a riddle solved, but a voice answering back. The whispers of impossible galaxies, the drumbeat hidden in hydrogen's light, the symmetry too sharp to be chance. These are not discoveries in the ordinary sense. They are intrusions. Clues slipped under the door by an author we never invited. And once you see them, you cannot unsee them. Scientists, those trained to measure and doubt, began to describe the feeling in words that do not belong in data tables. Uncanny, deliberate, observed. They speak in hushed tones, as though the cosmos itself might overhear. For the first time in centuries, rational minds confess that the sky does not feel empty, it feels inhabited. But inhabited by what? The possibilities spiral outward, each more unsettling than the last. Perhaps we are witnessing relics of civilizations that lived before the birth of our cosmos. Architects who sculpted galaxies like potters with clay. Perhaps these entities, if entities they were, found a way to survive across cycles of creation, leaving messages in ratios and rhythms because no language could endure across eternity except mathematics. Or perhaps we are wrong to think of them as civilizations at all. Perhaps what we are glimpsing are not societies, but organisms, living galaxies, vast and sentient. Their spiral arms, the limbs of beings that metabolize light itself. If that were true, then Webb's deep fields are not photographs of the past. They are portraits of neighbors. And if neighbors, then what? For every story of gods, there is a story of titans, beings so vast that mortals vanish beneath their notice. To such intelligences, we may be nothing more than background static, a flicker on the stage. But what if in opening Webb's golden eye, we stepped into their light? What if the moment of contact has already happened, not through radio signals or spacecraft, but through attention itself? In myth, the act of seeing often awakens. Medusa petrifies when you meet her gaze. The Gorgon sleeps until looked upon. Even the gods of old demanded offerings, not because they hungered, but because they demanded to be noticed. To pay attention is to grant reality. To build Webb was to gaze upon the impossible. And perhaps in doing so, we gave it permission to gaze back. Consider the countdown whispered in the ratios, the geometry of a sky yet to come. What happens when that configuration arrives? An alignment of galaxies? A resonance across hydrogen's endless song? A moment when the fabric of space itself forms a word? There are scientists who swear this is nothing, just noise, just coincidence. But they do not sleep well anymore. Because what if it is not nothing? What if the universe is staging a meeting and we are already late? It is here that dread sharpens into something almost religious, because the question ceases to be, what is out there, and becomes, what do they want? And then, more terrifying still, what if wanting is not the right word? An ant does not comprehend the architect who reshapes its colony. A fish cannot fathom the fisherman who lowers the net. If the cosmos is inhabited by beings who speak in galaxies, then we may not even have the categories to describe them. Not gods, not monsters, simply other. And yet, hidden in the dread is also wonder. Because what if the meeting is not an ending, but an invitation? What if the impossible galaxies are not ruins, but gateways? Structures designed to awaken us to the scale of the story we are in. What if their message is not threat, but permission? Permission to grow beyond the myths we clung to. Permission to abandon the fragile idea of a single beginning, a single end. Permission to step into the realization that the cosmos is not a clock, not a machine, but a conversation. A conversation waiting for us to join. Perhaps that is the final paradox of James Webb. The closer it brings us to terror, the closer it brings us to meaning. Because fear and awe are twins. The gasp of dread and the gasp of wonder are born of the same breath. So now we stand here suspended between them, staring at galaxies that should not exist, listening to rhythms that should not be heard, waiting for alignments that should not matter but somehow do. The universe has spoken in impossibilities, and we must decide what kind of species we will be when we answer. Will we retreat, hiding in the comfort of patched-up models, telling ourselves the story we want to hear? Or will we walk forward, trembling but unflinching, into the cathedral of the impossible, ready to admit that we are not alone? The curtain is rising. The stage is set. The actors are galaxies themselves. And humanity, small, fragile, brief, has been given its first line. What we say next will echo longer than stars.
Every great journey ends where it began, with a question. Humanity launched the James Webb Space Telescope to ask a simple one: what happened at the beginning? Instead, we were given a far more unsettling answer. There may be no beginning at all. The galaxies Webb has revealed stand like monuments in the dark, silent and immovable. They are not mistakes. They are not mirages. They are puzzles carved into the very architecture of time, forcing us to rethink the story we tell about ourselves. For a century, the Big Bang was our creation myth, polished with mathematics and crowned with evidence. But perhaps it was never the whole story. Perhaps it was only a chapter in an older book, a page in an endless library of cycles, universes, and echoes. Webb has turned that page, and what we see written there changes everything. Because if galaxies can be older than the universe, then our sense of time is too small. If patterns hide in hydrogen's light, then our sense of communication is too narrow. And if the universe itself behaves like a message, then our role is not merely to observe, it is to listen. Think about what that means. We are not passive spectators drifting through a meaningless void. We are participants in a story far older, far greater than we imagined. Our questions are not an accident. They are part of the script. Our wonder is not wasted. It is the very point. Yes, the discoveries of James Webb are terrifying. They strip away our comfort. They whisper of beings we cannot comprehend.
of cycles without beginning, of laws that bend beneath paradox. But terror is not the end of the story. Terror is the gateway to awe. Every culture knew this. The Egyptians built pyramids not just as tombs, but as telescopes of stone aimed at eternity. The Maya aligned their temples to the stars. The Hindus sang of endless cycles of death and rebirth. Our ancestors looked into the night sky and saw not emptiness, but meaning. Webb has only confirmed what they intuited, that the universe is alive with mystery and that we are woven into it. So, what now? Now we grow. We allow the old story to dissolve and we dare to imagine a new one. A story where beginnings are not singular, but infinite. Where intelligence is not rare, but inevitable. Where the cosmos itself may be conscious and we, tiny, fragile, transient, are one of the ways it knows itself. Perhaps the impossible galaxies are not warnings nor threats, but invitations. Invitations to stop thinking of ourselves as isolated, as brief, as insignificant. To realize that to ask the question, "Why are we here?" is already to be part of the answer. For if the universe has no beginning, then our existence was not an accident, it was a necessity. The cosmos required eyes to see itself, voices to speak its name, minds to marvel at its impossibility. We are not outside the story, we are the story, reading itself aloud. And here at last is the meaning hidden in Webb's revelations. The galaxies older than the universe are not there to frighten us, they are there to remind us. Beginnings are illusions. What matters is continuation. What matters is participation. What matters is that we are here now, in this fleeting moment, staring into the abyss and realizing it stares back not with malice, but with recognition. So let us not retreat into fear. Let us not cling to broken models. Let us stand beneath the night sky and embrace what Webb has shown us, that we are part of something vast, eternal, and unfinished. Because if galaxies older than the universe exist, then so too does possibility older than time. And possibility is all we need. The curtain has risen, the stage is infinite, the actors are stars, galaxies, civilizations, and minds yet unborn. Humanity's line has been spoken, we dared to look. Now the universe waits for our reply.